You know, if you're a Christian, there's so many amazing places to visit here in the Holy Land. You have Jerusalem, where I'm standing right now. You have Bethlehem, Nazareth, and you have the Galilee region where Jesus began his ministry. Well, in that region, there has been a very significant discovery recently at a former fishing village called Magdala. Now, historians, archaeologists believe that Jesus and the disciples actually walked in this village. Perhaps Jesus even taught in this village. I paid a visit there recently, and it is an amazing place. Here's a closer look at Magdala.
We know in the first century that before the year 19, the only town on the western side of the Sea of Galilee that's been discovered is Magdala.
Father Eamon Kelly is based at the Notre Dame Center in Jerusalem, but these days he spends a good chunk of his time here at Magdala. His order, the Legionnaires of Christ, owns and operates the site, which has produced some of the most important archaeological finds in recent memory.
You can trace the footsteps of Jesus all along the Sea of Galilee, whether it's Capernaum, Chorazin, Bethsaida. But in 2009, excavations began right here in Magdala, and what they found has been really groundbreaking in terms of bringing the first century Galilee region in which Jesus lived, walked, and preached to life.
I could imagine that Jesus would have gone many, many times from this port market, and you'd have people here sitting like us in these areas, and this rabbi, Jesus, would be going through here with his disciples and getting on the boat, seeing the old fishermen they knew, and getting a ride to the other side.
I'm sitting inside the remains of a first century synagogue in Magdala. It's the oldest synagogue that's been found to date in the Galilee region, and when it was opened 2,000 years ago, this was a thriving house of worship. We've also found here the oldest image of a menorah in stone, and who knows, when Jesus, his disciples were living, passing through this region, perhaps they came into this synagogue, worshiped here, and perhaps Jesus even taught here.
So we can see that this synagogue, of the 7 that have been found, is in a way the most beautiful because of the frescoes and mosaics, and the most developed architecturally as a teaching space. Later they would give a name to this space, Beit Midrash, the teaching house, the house of teaching.
But the most significant find uncovered in the synagogue is the Magdala Stone, featuring that ancient menorah carving and much more, as seen in this replica.
And you have the 2 pillars at the opening of the hall in front of the sanctuary, the menorah in front of that area of the Holy of Holies. Before the Holy of Holies you have a veil, and the top experts are telling us now that the rosette on top of the stone is really that veil. And then with the chariot of fire that we talked about, you have the divine presence in the Holy of Holies. And Ezekiel and the divine presence.
Yeah, and they're all interconnected. Ezekiel, Elijah, the menorah, all interconnected in this one stone.
Right.
It says a lot about the history of Israel, of the Bible, the Jewish people here, and really the roots of Christianity, the Jewish roots of our faith.
Volunteers from around the world are working here at Magdala to unearth even more, a series of mikvahs or ritual baths where Jewish worshipers would have purified themselves is another major find.
And you see there's a drain here and there's another one here. So these are canals that were connecting to the other mikvah. We didn't know what the purpose was originally. This is the first one we found. Then we found one across the street, and we found this one here to our right as number 3, and now we have found number 4. And we found it because we knew with the openings that it must lead to another one.
The site is topped off by a worship center dedicated to the women of the Bible, complete with a replica fishing boat for an altar and the Sea of Galilee as a backdrop. It's a perfect place for Christians and Jews to look back on their ancient biblical roots.
Well, Father Kelly was a great tour guide, and he believes that what they have found so far in Magdala is just the tip of the iceberg.